Okay, so hi to everyone. So I will be playing some SNG. Also, I have this usual MTT here, 25 euro deep impact and one. I have late registered here, so I have like 40 big blinds. Effective stack tier, so it has decent playability still. And on the upper right, there hasn't been that much happening yet. Made one 3-bet against this button guy, open raising. It is king, but no real action here. So let's register into. Actually have one. Let's take. Yeah, I'll actually register 10 euro. I already have 25 euro to on the registration. The MTT, I'm a bit too deep to be 3-bet shoving, even with the flatter, so I think I just call here. Ace-9 is still going to be. It's not marvelous hand to play in 3-way, but not too good to fold. And well, I suppose you can think about small 3-bet fold. And kind of similar here. If I 3-bet and face a shove, I don't really want to get in that situation, so I will just flat this one with the stack we have. Not the greatest of flops, but definitely he can have some total air balls, and we have the gut shot, so I will take one street. One street here. But I don't think we can really continue, especially when he makes it that big. I mean, more bottom range can have quite a lot of, and of course he can be. It's not bad spot to be bluffing if he has like continue bluffing if he has like some sort of combo draw or flush draw, for example. Maybe even gut shot sometimes, but we are at least somewhat blocking Jack X here. So as always, if you have anything to ask or comment, talk about, use the chat. It would be pretty thin to try to value bet on the upper right, even though we have a best hand sometimes, at least not this time. Oh well, with deeper stack I could call here on the MTT, but don't really like it with what we have. Obviously, very standard open raise. And mandatory call on the. Let's try to use my zoom. I should actually. I will call again here, though it's not that great spot because there's not that many bluffs he could have, and now obviously just checking back betting makes absolutely no sense, but luckily for me he was pretty much overplaying his. I don't know, like you have to kind of wonder, is he making that bet as value, or is it some sort of bluff or whatever, I don't know. Probably value. Just checking back the ace jack here, and we actually hit the top pair. I should fix these tune things. I think I can Probably can raise here as well. I mean, it's pretty rare that he has better than what we have, and can definitely include some semi-bluffs here. But if we raise here, we have a stack off if he happens to shove, and 7 sucks pretty big time. Well, I think I have to fold here. Well, we can beat some like King Queen, some flush draws perhaps, but probably quite often behind. This one has actually gone check check, so I think my 8 is extremely often based. So let's try to make sort of thin small value bet. I think this button of bluffing against 2 people is so small chance that I pretty much like that option. And let's just go for open raise here with the ace jack. And we have the stack of blind versus blind, 30 big blind, or a bit less than 30 big blind and antes. I don't necessarily love it, but it's really not really much else that can be done. And quite a setup. I will actually try to double barrel here on the barrel left. I mean, it's king 4 deuce, so he should definitely be calling some of the non-king X, non-flush draw hands. And he folds. Yeah, and MTT hasn't gone too well. These crappy kings we can just fold. And I think I fold here as well. It has been somewhat aggressive looking table, so probably not going to be the greatest idea to play 4-5 suited here. Well, on the MTT this will be pretty much 3-bet against anyone open raising. And we pretty much nail it. We only have bit over pot size, so even checking here wouldn't be bad itself, but I think I go for around 1/3. 1/3 of the pot c-bet. We give at least some possibility for the villain that we might be still folding. And yes, pretty optimistic play, I think, from that guy. In his shoes, I would have probably limps on the first place, but I mean, if you raise and you face 3-bet, it's time to let go of Jack 10, in my opinion. A huge c-bet on the top left. If he had made, well, I don't know, even if he had made like 1/3 of pot, I would still fold the king 8 without any backdoor stuff. Well, I suppose I could have actually used bit bigger sizing on the MTT, because we are now pretty deep stacked effective wise. But this one was cheap hand overall. And we actually have double gutter. Of course, the problem is that it has been limp spot, so Villain is a lot more capable of having 3x, but I think at the same time it's pretty good bluff combo. And we only hit the top pair, so let's check and hope that he hero called with some sort of 6x or something, and we might be good, but I'm just going to check fold here if he bets. Okay, I went in the outside table for 3-bet against min raise, and he makes huge 4-bet, so time to fold that one. And this guy seems to be like some total weirdo as well. I mean, over potting that paired board make like absolutely no sense. Well, this guy uses somewhat small sizing, so I think I call from position. And we actually turned it to top 2, so if he had barreled here, like, let's say that the turn was jack of the spade and villain had shoved, I would tend to just give up at that point. And nicely we get, it's not bad spot to see bet here on the MTT, because we had some backdoor possibilities. And we have a lot of strong combos overall in the range, so there are some decent barreling possibilities. Well, this guy goes for pretty sizable bets, but I think I still have to call here. Top pair is just going to be pretty high in my range. Well, he was actually a tiny bit ahead. You can also give feedback on the streaming time if you would prefer some other time, though I can't really play these games earlier than that, because, or well, at least 25 euro plus games usually don't run that much earlier, but this guy 3xing, I don't really like to call it with that price, and I don't know how often he's going to be folding to shove, so I think I just need fold here. This is actually one of those guys that doesn't change their mix at all, so I don't remember if he was using 3x often in general. I'm just giving up on the top left, and let's limp call the suited queen. It's going to be good enough. Had hit the bottom pair with the ace deuce, but obviously that flop is pretty crappy one. Well, now we actually hit the bottom pair. I think it's a bit too thin to go for value, but once he checks again, I think he has the a high type of hand very often. So let's actually go for value bet here. Well, got walked by with the jacks. And obviously when I check here, calling is the only option. Well, on the upper left wheel length should be shoving AX pretty often pre, so I will actually go for small c-bet, and well, I think I can't fold here with the top pair. When I limp, it's going to be the top of my range so heavily. Once he makes that sort of sizing, I think I just shove and get the maximum. If he has some sort of draw, he's going to call anyway at that point. So, and he actually had tiny bit better top pair with the flush draw. That was quite unfortunate. I don't know what is going on with all these pot bets around, but I think I can shove here. One overcard, open straight draw, backdoor flush possibility. So, and even against that hand, I actually had nice equity. Seems like everyone is using pot size bet everywhere. Well, if looking something positive, I suppose those games were just €10 ones. Raise calling 6-9 might not be the. I actually don't know. Did he make like some absurdly big sizing as well? Yeah, he 4x'd, so he's actually over 20 big blind deep here. I will call ace 4 here because I basically want to have some AX in my flatting range as well, and we are against min raise plus it was 20 big blind deep, so and I have to value bet here now, and king 10 is going to be a pretty reasonable bluff hand here. I also have a lot of jack and AX, so okay, he just didn't want to fold. Well, happy to stack off with the queens. I can definitely see bet small on the top left, but with this sort of hand I don't also mind to sometimes just go for the checking line and try to call the showdown. Like I would tend to always pretty much see bet if I had some sort of king 8, for example, so only one overcard to 9x. But king 10 we have such a good possibility to also turn the good second pair that I think check has some merits. Okay, we have, I suppose, open raise 3-bet, 4-bet shove situation. Well, I think I go for c-bet. There is some merit in checking back as well here on the top left, because basically if the villain is defending white, he can have a lot of strong hands here, and against this guy I would quite often just call as well. Not that eager to stack off, but he seems to be extremely aggressive, so I will just go for 3-bet call. Well, he actually had a strong hand, unfortunately. Still a bit ahead, of course, with the nines, but not that much. Four people in 10 and 20 euro, 25 euro games both. Well, these look pretty similar boards, both tables. Here on the bottom left, if they will let 3-bets, we have to just 4-bet shove pretty much, especially when the small blind is sitting out, so it will increase somewhat the possibility that villain will attack my open. And let's hope this guy doesn't shove, so we can pretty much shove. Oh well, one more people. Ace 8 is actually kind of close. That I just go for open shove. I'm thinking just about that. Do I prefer min raise fold more, or it's not going to be good enough to min raise call anyway, but And open shoving on the top left. Like king 7 off, you could also open limp, and the bottom right, it's pretty crappy flop overall against big blind. Of course, it depends. Like if we would have some reads that Willen is on the tighter side, then we can argue about just C betting as well. But as default, I don't really like it that much because it tends to be tough to get that many better hands to fold, and he can also try to make some check raises with some drawing hands and so on. And usually on the heads up I will be folding those absurd garbage hands, and king queen is actually hands that we can also go for 3-bet. And on the upper right we can quite happily fold if the villain second barrel, unless he makes really small or something. We didn't turn any equity, so and we also, like, you can basically think about it like how likely is it that you have better hands, and we definitely have AXs, we have better king X's, we have pair plus drawing hands and so on, so there is no need to continue with that one. Well, actually limped this ace-4 because I kind of, oh well, that's nasty as well. I kind of dislike the situation that you min raise and face the shove, but I will fold here as well. It's still 20 big blind shove, so problem is that most of the value range tends to beat us here. Of course, it always feels kind of weak to raise fold or limp fold AX 20 big blind deep. Let's just check here. We have a high, some showdown value. I suppose you could also bet and try to get some oh well, and we run into setup right away. That's the way. Basically here on the bottom right, this is drawy board, but it's actually pretty dry, unless Willen has absurdly wide range. he shouldn't have really straight draws that much, like maybe some 8-9 suited once in a while, but that's pretty much it. Well, I don't really have stack depth to set mine, or at least it's going to be pretty marginal with 15 times or 16 times the open raise. And of course it would have come. Well, we actually got premium to MTT. The upper right is the villain check. I would have tried to delay Seabed with Gatsut here. Well, this looks nice. He don't pot fetch. Thus hitting the top set. Let's just call and hope he continues. Now Jack 10 does beat us, but that would be quite unfortunate. But I will just shove here because there are still decent amount of kind of nasty, like Jack or 10 and such. So let's just bet here now that he's shut down. The MTT you can see if it's visible enough that on the bottom left there is like the amount of people that needs to drop for the first gas position, but there is still late registration going on, so villain probably don't have much here most of the time, so let's bet around half, but well, in the outer table lost with the queens against ace-5 that had hit the... Well, he actually had double gutshot on the flop, so... the bottom right, this is again one of those situations where basically small blinds should never be donk betting, but whatever. Just calling here and hoping that he has some airball and give the maximum possibility that he's going to spew off. If he has somehow beat me, then nice hand. And now we have easy shove, obviously. Probably some total airball because he didn't even consider on the river. On the outer table, it was 3-way flop when checked. I definitely have a lot of, or good amount of strong hands here, so let's bet quite sizable on the river, and we also don't block diamonds, which is definitely a good thing for our bluff here. And we actually blocked the straight possibility here. So a lot of good things for the bluff combo. Idiot and straight draw on the MTT. That's not going to be something that I most likely continue with. Kind of unfortunate situation. I open raised here, this guy called, this guy made 4x 3, but pretty decent hands to defend, but he overpay shoves here on a high flop, so I can't really call with my flush draw that it's quite often going to be against AX. Of course not always, but relatively often. Well, that was nasty turn card. he had queen high. Pretty interesting in a way, I suppose. Well, 1/3 of pot size bet. Well, I don't know, it's pretty coordinated board, and I suppose the question is mainly that how much showdown value we think we have. Should have probably c-bet that one, but well, check is not horrible either. Just timed out here. Well, let's go for... I actually don't know why I didn't bet earlier streets, probably because I had so much else to do. Would have been very standard flop bet with the gut shot. Had action at the same time on the outer table also, so... Well, not too good run with the flips so far. That's one of the... well, this is not such a bad spot to 3-bet as a bluff. It's decently playable hand from position if the villain happens to flat. And that applies as okay flop. So again, we can go for really small sizing. Whatever we have, nuts or jack 10 or whatever. And didn't open the 9-10 on the bottom right because small blind was pretty short stacked, so probably won't have that much. And on the outer table I went for limp call and will go for check raised here. We have so much equity overall with one overcard and second not flush draw that we can definitely go for. Stack off here. Of course, against that sort of sizing on the flop, we can obviously just call as well and play passively. I mean, when I limped, he actually min raised, so I was saying that our limp call range hits really well on that sort of board, but it's actually not as much as usual because of his min raise sizing. Because I won't obviously fold anything really against that sort of sizing. Oh well, I was just thinking about that on the bottom right, that nasty iffy face too. Nasty iffy face that we have got shot, but I think effective stack depth is kind of a low side to be peeling that sort of situation, and not the greatest flop or turn on the MTT. Oh well, I think we have to fold here. We also blocked with the Queen of Diamonds quite a lot of most sensible bluffing hand, so it's not really and you want to be bluff catching. Always suck when that sort of board comes, when you have big pocket. And we actually have double gutshot with the backdoor flush draw, so we'll just go for check raise here. If he calls, we can then ship the turn nicely. Well, we actually get some extra outs probably, but 10 itself is not really the greatest card to have, but let's hope that the real lane doesn't have the 10 at least. Because obviously if I was value raising like king the 7 for example, or maybe like king queen, sometimes that 10 is a really bad card. And he can definitely reasonably have one when he bets the flop and calls some 10x's. And suited ace, I will just shove against the limp here. Well, let's just try to stab the pot down on the MTT. You could also check, but I don't really like check calling that much, so. But yeah, this guy was the one that doesn't fold too much, I suppose. Let's make light raise here with the 5-8. Not the wanted result. Here we can just call with the 10-9 suited. Nice playability. And king queen will be mandatory shove. Oh well. One of these sessions again. Well, not the greatest situation in the MTT, but with the open-ended end, I can sometimes have the best hand as well, so I kind of have to call here again and hope for the best. That was really crappy river. That was really crappy river. If he was bluffing, that card quite likely improved him. Oh well. You can think about folding the 10 jack in a way that this guy's min raising as middle stack, so his range should be pretty tight overall. But at the same time, it's €10 game. not any known opponent, so I think there tends to be such so big chance that he's just win raising basically 2 white grains overall. How about ace? Well, some good run, unfortunately on the 10 euro game only, but better than nothing. Well, 9 of spade would have been a nice one on tier, but if I bluff this sort of hand, I'm just going to be over bluffing so heavily. And Wilhelm can definitely have some AXs as well, so on the bottom left, I think with the antes, king 4 is going to be best to just open shove if it's folded to me. For queen, not the greatest hand, but I think with the 8 big blind it's not going to be that bad to shove either. And jack 5 suited, I think it's pretty close, like jack 7 suited I would shove anyway. Of course he has the queen, big enough to call even. Well, at least we got action for the... And this guy using 2.5 pp, I think I just shove here. Oh, Jesus. Big blind woke up with the queens here, I think. And with the suited ace, if the villain had just min raised, I would likely just call, but when he makes it 2.5 pp, then I think the shoving start to be preferred option at that point. Probably not winning with the 10 high, but it might sometimes happen with the limp pot. Well, let's go for min raise. Sort of really dry flop, we can actually go for just c betting and obviously shoving with 12 big blind here. The MTT. And 7 jack will be open, so well, you can limp as well, but well, 8 basically shouldn't be too likely, but let's just check, and we definitely can't fold. There are a lot of possible draws he could have, and sometimes he will value bet weaker AX like that as well. I would just bet here, even though when he makes that sort of line, he actually probably has quite often just air, but I don't really know about what I should think about this hand, but maybe I just call and take the safe option. I have no idea what he has. It's like raising flop, check calling, turn, and then donk betting river. Like, no idea. So you could just argue that we had pot size bet on the river, and I would have shoved if he had checked, so maybe you would also say that it would be a good argument to just shove over his bet as well, but so any comments, anything to talk about? Use the chat. We are one of the last players on the MTT, so trying to survive pretty much. Obviously looking double up possibility. Oh, was going to raise for 3.5 pp, but doesn't matter that much. And really bad flop. Small blind doesn't hit that often, but big blind will, so I just take the free card. And it's actually small blind betting, but again, I don't have that many cards to improve me, and he does bet against 2 people, so let's just fold. And pretty decent flop. It's extremely dry, so we have good chance of getting him to fold. We also have some nice turn possibilities. Here the question is, how likely is it that we could get 3 street of value? And I think it's pretty marginal, like maybe 10x would call, so I think I will actually go for check call here. And I mean, if it goes check check, we can 10 value bet most of the rivers anyway. So did he call? He was pocket 8, so we probably got maximum out of that. And if we bet the turn, it's pretty likely that he would have folded, unless he just happens to be a big calling machine, which is totally plausible, of course. But and our chin cards on the top left. And let's just shove these jacks as well. We could limp, but I actually prefer a bit bigger pocket pair for that in general. With those shallow stack spots. And suited ace definitely shoving. Well, it's not late registration time at least anymore. Okay, we have quite a bit more connected board, so let's go for a bit bigger c-bet. Turn is total blank, so most of the time we are going to be good still. Well, most often I would just flat here on the upper right, but I don't actually mind sometimes mixing 3-bet with these suited connector type hands. Of course, this is nasty if it happens, but it's going to be pretty rare usually. Pretty rare one. We had like, yeah, I somehow thought that I didn't have the flush, but obviously I had. Well, obviously I didn't need one more spade. And I'm going to call here. We have a high and decently high must draw. Let's peel once more. And going to fold if he triple barrels, obviously. We might still win sometimes. Not going to hero anymore. And going to shove here. I mean, if he has better, then he has better, but he might hero sometimes with something weaker like small pocket pair, or so he shouldn't really have that many small pocket pairs, but a high is possible as well. King would, of course, he might have king or some pocket pair that beat me, but once he didn't snap call, it does look pretty good. Okay, he was just slow rolling. Genius. Well, that's one way to do it. But yeah, I think if we had checked the turn, we would need to check call again, and quite hard to get away anyway. Well, on the bottom left we can either min-raise call or open shove. I think both options are okay with hand like this. Well, kind of hitting. Well, now we actually have two pairs, so can go for bet unless some bad river comes. Well, I think that is good enough. It doesn't really change the situation most of the time. Unless he specifically has like some queen 7 or something like that. And we actually had quad on the outer table. I will check here. There are too many hands that are likely to stack off against shove at least. So, and there aren't huge amount of really bad cards overall when we have the flush draw. There's no point in shoving here. I mean, it's quite unlikely that he's going to bet call with weaker flush. So, and we got, well, he had double gutshot here on the turn, but still didn't have that huge equity overall. Well, nice looking situation. This guy shoving like 25 big blind. So let's try to take the donation. Ace 9 off. That's kind of funny line. And ace is really good card for the villain range, so I'm just going to check call here. And now we have the nuts, so let's bet for value. Just try to check the showdown with the king high. Sometimes we will win that. Oh, hi to Lappis. Definitely shoving ace 4 here and just calling that min donk bet. Of course, now that the second ace comes, there is bit less AX, but I don't know if there is too much value. We are actually blocking both of the draws as well, so I think I just check behind, and of course the club is the worst possibility. Well, you might sometimes have AX that is playing in really tricky way, but the question is if I fold this one, what do I call with? I can have some flushes, but I think this is still quite reasonable calling hand. Okay, he had full house. Makes sense that he's checking the. Maybe it was too loose, but without that second ace, it would have been a lot easier fold in a way that there would be more of the AXs in his possible range. Well, unfortunately, ace7 is not quite strong enough. I was thinking for a moment on the bottom right to check raise with the two with the backdoor possible draws I had, but decided to just give up. And ace queen, obviously, easy stack off, and we are flipping on the bottom right. Actually, one, two flips here, and king queen, obviously snap call. And actually, okay shove from the middle lane. Nice river. I will just raise here. I was thinking about limping, but I mean, he's middle stack, so I have a lot of incentive to be raising mainly with all sort of crap as well. Okay, in here we'll lane triple barrels. Of course, hard draw doesn't complete, but well, let's give up. I suppose it's kind of close in a way that it still was pretty good pot odds at that point to call, but and ace 10 I have to call. This guy has been really active. 10, nope. And pocket threes I have to re-steal. Nasty. First losing flip and then running into somewhat of setup. But that happens quite often. I'll probably tile these once in a while. So we are actually starting to close on the... this is actually quite nice combo to semi-bluff with the gut shot, and if the flush draw completes, then I could represent that with the blocker, but once it's that sort of card, I think I just give up. Well, I don't know if he would have folded ace on any river card, pretty much. Probably not. And ace 10, we are so shallow against other people that ISO shoving is kind of only option. Somehow he has monstered here. Considering that he sounds like 4 or 5 big blind, he should have pretty wide range. As default, I will go for min raise on the MTT. Still have some playability, some sort of blocker. I was going to check call on the upper right, but he uses such a big c-bet that let's just fold. Now small blind managed to just call. Shoving would have been reasonable as well, but obviously against him I'm not going to fold. And ace-10 suited, I have to call against the small blind, and I guess the big blind we can actually... I could have actually shoved to be honest, but I think big blind is probably quite rarely going to be... And went for kind of a loose shove here. Oh well. Loose. Ace is not really concerned overall. He's really rarely going to have one, so I will just look for bet pretty much. One of the worst cards on the river. Because that was the main card I was value betting against. Oh, Jesus. Good price, but I think he has it really often. Blank river, and I would have just gone for shove, and I can't call with the pocket fours. Jack 10 is actually kind of close. No, I suppose min raising is probably better than shoving. Limping would be reasonable also, but well, on the bottom right, I think we can go either way. But when we have the hearts, I think I prefer checking overall. Let's go for actually small. I think we have so often the best hands that making small value / protection bet is reasonable. Just to deny some of the equity he has. But the problem here is that it might be pretty rare that he actually calls with weaker. I think I just open shove this king jack, because if I'm in raise I can't at least call against a small blind, but with the antes I kind of prefer that one. I think I'm in raising and folding against small blind, calling against the big blind is option as well. Oh, he was way ahead. Well, pocket 7s I could have ISO shoved against the UTG, but when this guy comes along, then it's clear fold. And running into nuts here on the upper right. We had like 10 big blind, I think, or even a little bit less, so shoving the king was pretty standard. Yeah, this is something that MTTs quite often tend to be, that you tend to hang about on the smallish stack quite quite good portion of the game. And lucky, hopefully running deep in the end. I will just go for check raise here with the, of course, I really won't have that many semi-bluffs, but some 4-5 type of hands are possible. As it was limp spot, so can have white ranged here. Plus this is so small flop that I go for small c-bet for value. Let's hope that he doesn't check raise at least. Okay, he had top pair. Well, this might be pretty loose open. But it's nice to have these sort of hands. Like 7-8 suited would be standard for me, but those these one gappers start to be a bit questionable from high check. In a way, you can defend that sort of hands against the 3-bets because it's less likely to be dominated, but unless it's against the pocket pair, of course. But no need to defend that one. Let's peel on the top left. We have some backdoor straight draw possibilities here. Well, this guy is 3-betting, but min 3-betting, so not gonna fold pre-flop against that. It's kind of funny that I have faced 3-bets 3 times in a row here. Well, we can beat some hands, but I don't know, it's kind of suspicious line toe, especially when he goes to close to pot size on the river and doesn't bet the turn. But it might be some 8x maybe. Weak top pair sometimes, or some random river 2 pair. somewhat on the minus side, but less than 100 euros at this point. Like this, I think this NRA guy on the MTT was at one point really big stack. If it's the same guy, I'm not totally sure. Well, we have got shots, but I wouldn't expect huge amount of fold equity on the. Let's take the free river. Yeah, we can get some 5x, 6x to fold, but better than that is not usually. Usually folding, and 7 will be improving some of his hands. I suppose we could try to bet here on the river. It's less likely that he has the king x, and we can put some of those small pairs into tough spot. And I would bet value bet jack x here. Well, he actually had the king. Didn't bet himself. Well, I would have been value taunted against king x if I had jack. I think shoving is probably the optimal option on the MTT. I think on the upper right we can use that ace-10 as 3-bet folding hand quite reasonably. Quite reasonably. Any better I would either call or 3-bet call, but well, this guy did c-bet against 2 people and I only have got shot, so if I had 10 of spade here I would probably check shove, but let's give up that one. Suppose call on the upper right would make some sense. We are still beating semi-bluffs. Pocket rockets on the MTT, hopefully we get some action. We have been recently active with the open raising, so someone might try something. Not the best of flops, but obviously with 3 times the pot there is not much else to do than bet and stack off. If needed. Not sure about the MTT. We can definitely defend that one actually. But I don't know. Against 2.5 pp it's probably quite close. defend against UTC Open. Well, let's not fold. I don't feel good about that, so against min raise I would have defended. Maybe a bit nitty to not defend that one. And we won the flip. Outer table facing two small 3-bet, but didn't hit anything with the king jack off. Eight 10 we could sometimes check raise on the upper right, but we don't have the king 10. Or 8 10 I mean. Well, let's try cheap bluff here. So I don't know. We are basically. I will just check behind. We are just mainly representing 8x here, so it's pretty narrow range. In a way, we can check here, but I think like if he happens to check raise, we can still just shove this one. So. And we only have 9 high, so winning the pot right away is definitely good thing. So still 11 people would need to drop out for the monies in the MTT. The upper right, if the big blind shoves, we are priced in to call it with suited ace. It seems like the MTT has gone quite passive. Just shoving the 20 big blind on the bottom right. This is kind of interesting stack depth. I think I go for limping. We can definitely shove profitably as well, but it's just that. And on the upper left, I think I just go for check shove. We have some draws definitely here that we could also make the same play. And it's still hand that is going to be good most of the time, but also quite vulnerable. No, in the MTT, I suppose checking the flop would have been totally reasonable. Trying to get into showdown pretty much. I just didn't want to raise, and it's quite a disaster if he 3-bet shoves and open shoving while definitely plus EV. It's not hugely plus EV still. And we can check back king high. Betting would be okay as well. So we have decent showdown value with the king high against the big blind. So But I would play a lot of AX in that way that I bet the river, so it's not bad spot to do that either. And ace then shooter, I will be 3-bet shoving against that open raise on the bottom right. If no one else 3-bets, we can flat as well, but it's then kind of you have to continue on quite many flops even if you don't connect with it. But obviously there are some good sides in just flatting such nice playable AX, keep his range wider. And just folding on the top left because of the stack depth situation. Usually I would defend that one, but as clear middle stack, it's not something you want to really do. And king queen, this guy is decently active. This is pretty close, I'm not totally sure, but I think it's a bit better to be probably a bit better to be shoving than folding. That's actually something that would be worthy to check out. Ace king. Well, that was nice. On the MTT, I was thinking about, do I want to go for 3 street, or because we have a bit of a kicker problem, so at the same time him having bigger jack X is quite unlikely from combo perspective. And here are definitely flush draws we want to be putting pressure on here, and maybe some straight draws like some AX, A5 type of hand would make some sense. On the top left we need to check call against normal c-bet size. Here I don't expect huge amount of showdown value, but we have some still, so suppose I just go for check call. And that is one small 3-bet. And that wasn't good. Oh well, second nut flush versus nut flush on the outer table. Oh well. Let's min raise on the MTT and call against the big blind, fold against small blind. So open shoving would have been reasonable as well, but I think that guy has been so passive so far that we are probably not getting too many liked 3-bets. Well, open folding that sort of deuce 9 would be fine, but it's fine to try to play as well, unless if the villain isn't very aggressive or on the aggressive side. A bit better on the heads up, and I would have open shoved it right away, but 5-9 is reasonable, and I will actually try to bluff here. We can use not such a huge sizing that we could value some 2 pairs as well. Okay, he didn't believe. Open raise 3, but well, it wouldn't be horrible to. I should have probably called that one actually. The 3rd pair. Well, snap call hand waiting forever to call. Well, I don't really have too many bluffs here, so let's just flat that and hope that he would bump the river, but he doesn't, so sometimes they make those that they bet really small on the earlier street and then go for huge river bump. Unfortunately not this time. A nice hand, but he 4 PP opens, but at the same time he seems quite busy from the earlier hand. So we are actually quite close to the bubble on the MTD and one of the smaller stacks. Well, I will go with the 610. It's close in the NAS as well, I think, but no, let's not fold that one. And in here we can go for non-all-in. Well, let's go for really small bet here. Oh, well, unfortunately, big blind didn't call behind. We could have folded at that point because the small blind did shove. We are actually in the heads up here. Well, definitely have to call at least on the upper right. I suppose it's quite close to even raising. But we would basically aim against 8x. I will actually go for it. Or some random 10x like 9-10 might be semi-bluffing the turn and with the gut shot and 10 value bet. Ooh, one of the outs. So we would need something on the MTD. Well, we still have decent stack depth, but that 6 wasn't good. Well, now we actually hit somewhat. And ace is exactly what we wanted. Not. Well, let's see if he has pocket sixes or something. If he checks behind. Well. But yeah, I think calling this 10-7 shooter is kind of mandatory, and in here we have to shove this. We are actually small stack at this point. We actually have 4 people in the 50 euro. So that might start soon. It's quite likely that our hand is the best one. I would be pretty surprised if he has like, yeah, sure he can have better 8x or some pocket 9s sometimes, but not betting 10x or better would be surprising. Well, this might be the last hand on the MTD. Oh, he actually folded still. And nice blank river on the upper right, so we can still value bet. And yeah, we can't fold here at least yet. That is a bit of a bad one. Yeah, if he continues here, I suppose we can't probably. He might sometimes have some overpair or even set type of nut hand. And some fuzzies, of course. And yeah, like it's quite hard to get value really. If he has like queen jack, he's obviously not calling, and would he check raise any weaker top pair, for example? I will just check back here. I think if he makes that sort of play on the flop and has this ace of spade, he should be continuing on the turn to represent that flush or utter nutty hand. But luckily for me, he didn't fire anymore. Because like when you check raised here, are you going to get like basically the 10x is going to be quite often sort of bottom of my value range in a way. Against this 4 pp open raise guy, I think I just shove here with the jacks. Oh, he folded. These guys really often make some, like, I think many of these guys that make that sort of open raises, they tend to call way too much. They might raise like that with some mediocre hand, and they just call it against shoves. Not this time, and now he's open selling over 30 big blind, which is quite a move. Quite a move. So we have flush draw. This is actually a situation where he might quite easily check back if he has like ace 10 type of hand, for example. So I think I just lead here. And even though I make pretty big sizing, it's quite tough for him to be folding any AX right away. Yep. Well, now we will be just check folding then. Our flush changed from pretty nutty hand to really crappy hand. Really crappy hand. Of course it's possible that we were way behind all the time, but quite unlikely still. No queen or no jack, and we could have value bet the river. Oh well, sort of nasty sit spot in. I suppose we can fold the ace queen. I saw raised cutoff limp and faced huge 3-bet shove from the small blind. Like 60 big blind. And annoying ace on the outer table. Well, against that sizing I definitely need to call. Just checking here. So we are the smallest stack on the MTT. Well, that will definitely be open shove. Once this guy raises, I can shove. It's actually a reasonable spot to bluff catch if the villain had bet here on the bottom right. Because when I raised, I don't expect too many 5x's. Of course he can have some, but probably not too many. We can sometimes mix check raise. Well, now we actually have the straight after free turn. I can actually, if I change this, we can see if it's, I'm not sure if it's visible. Well, it's somewhat visible, it shows the other small stacks here on for the MTT. Let's bet one more street here on the bottom right. Oh, that was unfortunate. But pretty tough for him to have that much any bluffs for that sort of play. And I will just shove the ace-8 against small blind. And on the bottom right we have nice equity with our hand, so checking back on the flop is the normal option for me. Well, I just call here, and now we got nuts on the MTT, and we shouldn't have much of fold equity against, so hopefully doubling up. Oh, he actually still folded. That's some total garbage. It's kind of close on the upper right. That could be. It's actually kind of interesting against that guy. That should we be. Oh, that this guy called, so I won't. I was thinking about 3-bet shoving against him here, but. No. Oh, well, sit out with the ace king. That's the way. That's the way to do it. Oh, yeah, I will shove here. We have nice blockers, and suited will give us some extra equity. And decided to just slow play with the 10. Oh. Oh well, nasty hand here, and pretty clear shove here for value. What happened here? Oh yeah, I had queen 10. Would have probably folded against my shove. I mean, when you are one of the smaller stacks and you have this sort of big stack clearly abusing the situation, you can fight against it. Of course, it depends on specific player that are they actually folding, or will they make some really questionable raise calls or something, but. Oh well. Oh, this guy called my pre-flop raise donk bet pot on the flop. I called. Turn is obviously not the greatest with flush completing, but we had bit over pot size and he went for shove and it looked pretty funky line, so decided to call and turns off with king 7. So quite funny line, I would say. Let's just try to bet pot down. It's pretty nasty to be check calling either with that hand. I think we can actually go for 3-bet here, although we have to stack off against the button. If he had shoved with the pot odds we get. I mean, it's wide range from the button, small blind has wide range and so on. Oh well. Pretty standard shove overall here with the 6s. And ace 10 is going to be pretty strong. Pretty strong holding in most cases, and especially against this guy. And let's go for light raise with the deuce 3. Well, more often I would just tend to check back that one, but aces. Oh well. Well, I probably have to shove this ace5 with this short stack I have. We hopefully get this into heads up pot and might be in decent shape even. Well, at least the ace is alive. I'm probably quite close to be honest. Oh, well, we have blocker, but it's pretty tough to see what we beat. It was limp spot and I went for bet flop, bet turn. Here and king jack I have to solve. We are getting a bit of breathing room. It's a reasonable hand, but I suppose in that stack situation I can give up that one. Seems like no one wants to drop, obviously, for some weird reason. On the MTT. Well, that's how the bubbles usually go. Well, this time he didn't open raise. I think here ace blocker is going to be such a strong blocker that we have to shove here. It's pretty decent big stack villain, so let's take the risk that we run into something. And if it's folded to me, I will shove against the big blind, but obviously folding otherwise. Ace or king? Unfortunately, no. And this is mandatory shove. Has to run into monsters everywhere, and against the middle stack. Yes, extra nastiness. Well, against small blind it's mandatory. Call in the upper right. 3-10. Yep. Awesome hand to shove. Awesome hand. Well, let's hope that he loses that one. Some justice. Karma, I suppose. 9-6 we probably have to stack off if he shoves. So someone dropped here in a huge collision setup. Getting kings and running into aces in bubble basically. The MTT, that's the definition of rough. 8.5. I'm not actually sure if I 4.8 big blind, so basically I should be calling in the nice range pretty much. Well, almost flush. Well, I probably don't have too much fold equity, so let's just take the free flop. That looks expensive. Well, shoving is pretty much the only option. Let's take the fold equity on our side. Okay. Some action for the aces. And we are actually in the direct bubble now. It's all going to be pretty tight. Not going to make taking big risks at that point doesn't make any sense really, because we are still one of the smaller stacks, so even if we double up, it's not going to be huge increasement for our chance to run deep overall. Well, I suppose we can try to value bet the king or full house. He called for split pot here. Thinking that he might sometimes have the AX even. So the smallest stack is 10,000 chips. The upper left I have to call against the small blind. At least if he's even close to any sort of nice range. That's a different question if he is or not, but it's reasonable call anyway. Well, 9-6 would have hit pretty nicely. Can we get weaker hands to call? I think it's pretty close, unless we get like 9x to call, but that's probably a bit questionable. Yeah, if we get through the bubble on the MTT, it's going to be, well, pretty small jumps in the prize pool unless we get to the final table or close to that. So, for example, 26th, the first prize will be the €55, and well, 10th player will get €70. So there's really not that much. And hoping that this guy shoves and our aces actually hold. Well, we didn't lose. If looking for positive things, straight on the board wasn't the greatest outcome either. And 9-8 will be good enough versus 3 big blind. 3 big blind stack. And suppose we could try to limp here. Of course, this guy might shove, but we did have the aces on previous time, so maybe he will be more careful. We can then try to basically team play against this guy. If it checks on the turn, I will bet myself. I think we have the best hand really often, so let's try to make small value bet. Okay, well, betting might have been good result on the upper right this time. I just have to call here. We only have half pot remaining. Even shoving turn would have been reasonable, but as played, I'm not plugging busted draws that much, like 9-6, 9-8, yeah, but when he checks, I think it's pretty tough to get weaker hand to call. Overall, like would he bet 7x like that or something? Well, that guy was really lucky against my traps. Really, really lucky. Let's bet here on the 50 euro. We have some nice turn cards like that one that we can we can then second barrel and put some pressure. So it went as hoped. And there are two less than 5 big blind stacks on the MTT. Yeah, like even here, if it was folded to me, I think shoving would be somewhat plus EV, but I don't think open folding would be like totally absurd either. Because again, like if we get those few thousand to our stack, it doesn't matter that much really in that direct bubble situation. And just folding as middle stack on the upper right. So yeah, any topics to talk about? Well, this guy made check min raise after limping. Yeah, board run didn't really look good for the small blinds here. Way more likely that this guy had the 8x. Well, pocket fives I have to ISO so here against short stack shove. And looking pretty good once we hit that set. Just call it here on the upper left and hope for blank turn. Was thinking about just shoving the turn as well. I suppose it would be somewhat reasonable. I think it's quite close here, but the thing is that, well, Can have some sets maybe that he's scared about the flush. Yeah, I think I just check behind. Yeah, we might lose against that sort of like value against that sort of hand, but okay, so the bubble busted on the MTD. And on the 50 euro, this is mandatory open shove. Basically now on the MTT we are just looking for some decent spot. And can't win it here. Pretty bad run on those bubble situations in 25 euro games. Constantly losing. And King 5 with the ante is definitely strong enough on the MTT. And A7 will be open shove as well. Well, let's hope for best in the 50 euro. Oh, fucking deuce. Can't be in much better shape than that. How about run good here as well? Nice. Nice. Hopefully that will pay off. Here in the 50 euro, that was pretty expensive bad beat. And obviously against the small blind is the nuts. Now the deuce is not good, unfortunately. I went for a call on the ace-10 shooters because I don't really want to shove that deep, and 3 betting is pretty awkward because what do we do if he forward shoves? Neither option really feel good, so flatting is pretty decent possibility. That was quite something. Yeah, you can fold on the turn, of course, but we might be good, and ace or 10 is often going to be out. Well, we have to stack off with the 10s. Not great situation too, but I probably haven't been single time overs in Average stack in the MTT, but that's fine. Oh, it was open race. Accidentally looked that it was Will Lane on the big blind. Pretty common situation in those when there is no small blind. And great turn card. Can definitely semi-bluff here. I go for 10,000. So if this small blind happens to check out, it would have been pretty awkward. Well, this guy open race, I 3-bet. I have to stack off here pretty much. Well, probably split spot. Club 7, nope. Well, that would have been nice to win. Well, king then suited will be, at least if the cutoff folds, I will be shoving that one. Oh well, min cash, we... And pretty clear value, but here... Oh well, hope for a bit better than min cash, but... That's the nasty part of the MTTs in general. That raising, well, deuce X is somewhat unlikely. Yep. Katsot. Well, I don't know. I'm pretty high in my range anyway here. Not plucking anything from the busted draw department really. Well, kind of have to shove the king queen suitor because like if I limp and he shoves I actually can't call, and so even if making some sort of limp shove would be sort of nice, it's just too big of a risk that he's going to just shove over my limp and force me to fold that. So we finally got double up on the upper right. On the upper left, if the button folds, we can actually shove that. We can't put such a big ICM pressure on the other big stack. And pretty weird looking action here, button min raising against limp. Let's hope that it's not any huge hand. On the upper left we have the best hand pretty often, and definitely hands that need some protection. Well, this time we actually suck out. But yeah, I don't really need or see any other option than shoving the pocket 8s and 3s is clear shove. I don't know about 50 euros, but weak pair, weak draw. The problem is that hitting the flush, you don't really know is it good or not if you face any bet. Well, we don't have showdown value. I don't know if we ever get top pair to fold, but there's a good chance to get some 9x at least. Yeah, and I didn't think that he has 4. Yep. Well, this guy doesn't seem to be raising against the limping pretty much ever, so maybe I shouldn't be balancing it out too much. Of course, when the stacks go to shallower, they tend to chances for that tend to increase. I think I shove the king 7. It's probably quite marginal, but I mean we only have like 7 big blinds, so should be a decent option. And on the upper left, pretty much have to call most turn bets. But yeah, if he fires here third time, I will fold. Problem is that he can value bet a lot of Jack X as well, so it's not just AX, and he might have AX as well, but I'm just going to check back on the 50 euro. I think it's kind of awkward if you see bet and face check raise. And of course he donk bets. Well, the thing is that the small blind calling range should have quite a lot of king X, so well, I have to call with the awesome 3 deuce. Just one big blind remaining. And we actually win. Well, 9-5 is not going to be, I think, well, 3.5 big blind. I suppose you could go either way. And 9-4 off. In the Nash it would be up to 3.3 big blind, so well, I suppose it would be again break even. Well, king is not min raise folding, maybe not, and he has better. Well, not going to semi-bluff with the gut shot in 4-way, but and 6s I will shove it here. And set is not enough. Bah. I will just raise here. I have so many nutty hands, and it's actually quite decent bluff combo. I don't know. This has been should have been shoving that one. Well, not the greatest session, I have to say. I could have been raised folded ace 3 as well, but at the same time when it's running into kings, yep. just see bet here and stack off. On the bottom left, I think it's definitely in the Nash range to shove this one in this stack situation. I think I played his 3 to the end and let's quit. Basically, just curious if I, even if I win all of these, it's not going to be profitable session. But it would actually fill the hole somewhat. Such horrible play to induce with the pocket fives, but luckily he didn't win that one. Should be such obvious open shove. And Queen Jack is not quite enough if the villain shoves here. Let's raise that crappy one as well. Can use really polarized stuff here as default. And we had decent bluff catcher, but once he checks, this is pretty mandatory. Value bet. You can 3-bet the ace-10, but just flatting is totally fine as well. And of course, if 3-betting, you have to stack off. But depending on the villain, it might not be really that profitable to be 3-bet calling. Well, I think I probably still need to value bet this one, but that was kind of nasty river. But let's try to make sort of small blocker bet value bet. That's the downside of it. Well, no point raising here, especially when we have the queen of club. But yeah, I will just chip it here and let's see what is the situation. Well, that was one of our outs. I think I just 3-bet the ace jack. We can fold if someone shoves behind, outside of the open raiser, obviously. And dominated ace. Just can't miss. Basically on the right table, at least in this stack setup, if it's folded to me on the small blind, it will be pretty much any two hands that we want to play. Of course now it's a bit more even, but still a pretty nice spot to be shoving against the big blind. This guy have been limping huge amount of time, so I will just shove here. Of course he might be trapping sometimes, but at least so far he has been limp folding. But yeah, that was pretty tough. That, well, the MTD run after getting the cash, it wasn't that great, but also that 50 euro bubble was quite nasty. Losing the 70-30 in the bubble. But yeah, here any one card shove spot basically. Even if somehow not getting all the cards. Jack 3, it's up to 5 big blind and zero. And this as well, so it's quite borderline. Unfortunately running into nuts. Again, like if the villain is, for example, a little bit too tight, then it's really plus EV, and if he's calling Nash, it's around break even, so it tends to go toward the aggressive option in those situations. But folding is not really bad either. And wrongly lane won that one. Okay, well, let's call. Well, he probably won't fold, but no, especially with that hand. Well, we still had some equity. So yeah, this was pretty crappy session. Suppose we are pretty much at the bottom of our range, so there aren't that many draws really that has busted. Okay, just trying to get some weaker than Jack X to fold pretty much. Other option would have been Jack fold. Ooh. So yeah, even if we winning this one, it will be around, I think, 150 euro, 160 euro on the minus side. So not the greatest session ever. But what can you do? That would have been call against this shove as well. Can't be much worse board run, but this is pretty obvious check back. And set up in the end, so not even winning that one. So minus 200 pretty much exactly. So yeah, I'll probably stream next time on this Saturday. There will be the heads up SNC review coaching thing. So thanks for watching and commenting, and if you liked the content, then click the like button or subscribe to the channel so you get info about future stuff. But yeah, bye for now.